Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch a Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grim Show. I am the Dude.
And I am Grim, and after a long bout with some technical difficulties, today we are going to talk about the Black Album by Prince. Not the Black Album by Metallica, not the Black Album by Jay-Z, the Black Album by Prince. And I am excited to talk about this one. Dude, share your feelings with the group.
One. Yes, this is an interesting one.
It is.
You know, one that I know both you and I, we've known Prince's work throughout the years. We haven't followed him extensively. At least I certainly haven't.
I don't claim to be a super fan, but a huge amount of respect. Just the guy is probably the most prolific musician that I can think of. So this album came out, or was originally going to come out in 1987. And at that point, well, I guess I don't know if they judged this by when it actually came out in 94 or 87, but either way, it was his 16th studio album.
So I can help you out there. I did the math.
Okay.
So
nice.
Yes, in 94, it was his 16th studio album. When it was supposed to be released in 1987, it would have been his 10th album, following up Sign of the Times.
Okay,
so
now
it would have been his 10th. Yeah,
but here's the thing. That would mean that I believe when he kind of came on the music scene, I think you're talking like late 78, 79, if I'm not mistaken. And there was, he had produced some sort of a demo tape, and there was like a bidding war between labels for him because he was so fucking awesome and can play all these instruments like really well. So let's just say that it was the 10th. That's in less than a decade. The guy's putting out an album a year. And by the way, like these albums that he's putting out, they're not exactly like just filler. I mean, dude, 1999, Purple Rain all fall within that. And those are like career making albums.
Yeah, these are fully produced pieces of work. It's not like, and I love, simple stripped down acoustic music, but it's not just like it's like him with an acoustic guitar. This is like full production. And again, I think part of the reason I think he was able to do that and put so much out is because he is able to play so many instruments that he's not relying on other people and other schedules. But I will say, man, to still be able to put out that many albums, and I'm sure he was touring the shit out of the world at that time. So
unbelievable.
I mean, he was definitely a workaholic, musicianaholic, I guess. But absolutely very, very impressive. And I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna comment on that like one thing I would say that I noticed in a lot of his earlier work, and I don't think his live stuff is as indicative of this, but I noticed that he did use a lot of drum machines in many instances over a live drummer. I actually just listened to 1999 again the other day, and there is extensive use of the Linn LM1 drum machine.
Okay.
Which you can hear, and same thing with the Black Album, I think, too. But using a drum machine versus a real drummer or not, it doesn't matter. It's amazing to me that he put out that many albums, because I think, unfortunately, he passed away, and I believe it was 2016. April 21st of 2016, he passed away. However, in that time, within his lifespan, dude released 39 albums.
That's crazy, man.
It's insane. And, it's funny because you think of him as this multi-instrumentalist, right? But when you hear him play guitar, like, he is just a fucking nasty guitar player. I mean,
he tears it up. He does.
Yeah. And that one clip that I watched, that that I've watched several times was from the induction of, I'm not sure if it was I'm going to guess it was the induction of George Harrison into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where they did While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And there's all these guys on stage, Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty. Yeah, you can go down, and George Harrison's son, Danny, I believe. And dude, and then so for the end solo, Prince came on stage and just ripped it apart.
That's killer, man. That's
and the one thing I like is at the end of the performance, he takes his guitar and throws it up in the air. And the guy who was playing drums, I think was quoted at one point as saying, "I don't think I ever saw that guitar come back down to the ground." So like it floated away or somebody caught it. I don't know.
Maybe George Harrison got it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I think, how we started kind of saying in the beginning, we're not as deep into the Prince catalog as some people might be, but this album is a very special album and has such a good story. And that's really why we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because, even maybe some more people who are more fringe Prince fans may not even fully be aware of this because, we'll talk about the story, but even you still can't even find it today. Like I'm not able to download
major streaming services.
Yeah. The only way we were able to listen to it, there's bootleg copies out there and whatnot, but the only way we were able to listen to this is on YouTube. And if you search Prince on YouTube, Prince the Black Album, you'll get a couple of searches that come up, and that's how we listen to it. So,
but and that amazes me because, okay, so in 1987 he pulled it. Like he pulled it from release and Warner Brothers, accepted that and they pulled it. But then they still, what I read was that they fast forward to 1994 after several, probably another 10 or 12, several albums had come out. They wanted to release that. And I believe they paid him $1 million to be able to release the album. So it was officially released. And yet you still can't find it on like major streaming services.
Yeah. Well, they released it. Yeah. Like you said in 94, but it was only released for 3 months. Like that's crazy. And then they pulled it again. So there's still very, very few. And no streaming service and stuff like that. And I will say, man, Warner Brothers is an interesting company. They really give like some of their artists, like basically carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they want, Like they really do. Cause even, and this isn't in music, but Stanley Kubrick, the movie director, he was signed with Warner Brothers, and they basically, after like 2001 and Clockwork Orange, some of those movies came out, they just kind of like let him do his thing. And he would put movies out every 6 or 7 years, but they just kind of just let him do his thing.
That's pretty amazing.
I don't know. And we've talked a little bit offline about Prince, and obviously he had star power, and there's very few musicians out there that I think
who can leverage it like that.
Stevie
Wonder was one of them.
Dude, you would say, well, probably Stevie Wonder, definitely Paul McCartney could do it. David Bowie, Madonna could probably do it.
Yeah.
Those people of that stature where they just had that amount of control, where it's like, we just need to keep them happy, keep them putting out good work. But I think that for some reason I brought up Stevie Wonder because I believe that what I had heard was his music was so good when he went to negotiate with, I believe, don't sue me for not doing my homework if I'm wrong here, but I believe that when he negotiated with, I think it was Berry Gordy, but I could be wrong at the time because I think he was originally signed to Motown. I think he was the first artist that was given complete creative control. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
I think so. Don't shoot me on that one, but I think it's amazing because I guess before they pulled the release, there was something like 12,000 copies of the album that had made it to like the UK as like advanced promo releases. And there were only a handful of them that made it to the US. And so I'm seeing that in April of 2016, an original promo copy of this album from 87 sold on Discogs for $15,000. And then in 2017, 5 copies were discovered, and they were selling for over $42,000 a piece.
Yeah, so
it's amazing.
If you have any free time on your hands, maybe check out some secondhand LP shops and record stores. But
oh yeah, how amazing would it be to find this shit in a garage sale? That'd be something,
right? Yeah. Dude, oh my God, that would be pretty incredible. I mean, that's the thing is, they're out there, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like somebody's got them somewhere. So I don't know, dude. You want to talk a little bit about the story? I mean, or even just the.
I do, because I think it's really interesting. And to me, again, like I said, not being what I'd call a super fan of Prince, I always have an immense respect for the guy. But not being a super fan, I didn't know about the Black Album. And I'm going to say maybe like 3 months ago, I was listening to my favorite music podcast other than Scratch a Track, presented by the Dude and Groom Show. And that podcast is called Disgraceland by Jake Brennan. Great podcast. And there was an episode about Prince, and I thought, I really want to listen to this because I don't know a whole lot about Prince. I mean, other than, I remember a lot of videos on MTV. He did a fucking killer soundtrack for the original, or maybe not Batman. Original, but the 80s Batman one, which I love. Dude, so awesome. I listened to it, and one of the biggest things in the podcast was he talked about how Prince had made this album and pulled it at the last minute, almost as if to say, like, there were trucks with the album packaged and ready to go on their way to stores to put it on the shelves. And he called Warner Brothers and said, no, we're not putting it out. And the story I heard was that he had gone to a club in Minneapolis that he would normally go to, and he decided to experiment with ecstasy on this particular night. And
always a wise choice.
Oh, hell yeah. And walked up to the DJ in a dark club, I'm going to assume wearing sunglasses, and handed him a copy of the record and just said, spin it. And the crowd loved it, but I guess the rest of the story is that as he went and listened back to it, he felt that the album was like evil after this experience with ecstasy, because he was in like a dark place when he wrote it. It was basically like a response to some criticism that he had received, I think, and we'll get to who and why, but I think there was some criticism he had received prior to that. And people thought he had like maybe lost the funk, or he wasn't quite up to the times. And so this album, instead of being something that was like work that he really felt was powerful and believed in, was more of done as like a fuck you. Yeah. Is the way I interpreted that.
A lot of people had kind of criticized him for becoming too pop oriented, and actually saying he kind of, alienated his black audience at the time. And that's what they were saying. And I think it's interesting and when we go through track by track, but listening to this album a few times, I think there's some things that there's some definite shots at people.
Oh yeah. Types of music.
There's a lot of satire, I feel, too, where he just kind of pokes fun and whatnot at certain people, and just I think he had a choice to make, and it may have been obviously that experience with the ecstasy and that whole event that went down. But it's interesting because you have this, it's like I think he had a come to Jesus moment, basically, where where maybe he realized that he created an album again, in response to critics. He wasn't doing it for himself. And he, in my mind, has always been that type of artist where he's like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do the way I want to do it. Yep. And, and I'm going to put that out. And I don't care what people want or what they think I should do. So I think that's probably where the conflict kind of came in. And when he talks about it being evil, well, I in a weird way, it kind of came from what he probably thinks is a really dark place.
And what I guess he apparently has spoken of that time in his life, or the night rather, that he decided to cancel it, like a dark night of the soul is what I'm seeing. And I was looking at like the Prince Vault, which I thought was interesting. I not all artists have this, but I mean, this is like a website dedicated to just everything Prince. And I took some stuff from there because I think that says a lot if like people, you know, are that dedicated to following an artist where they're like, they're saying like, okay, Prince is unfortunately gone, but this website is like the Prince everything, right?
Everything. No, it is. And you know, the album itself, just I mean, physically talking about the album, you know, again, all black cover, no titles, no name, wasn't going to say anything Prince on it. Yeah. I mean, basically what it was is Smell the Fucking Glove, right? That's what it was. Well, yeah. It was Smell the Glove from Spinal Tap, which with that movie came out in 1984. So maybe that's where he got the idea, you know?
I hope so. But even if he didn't, I think it's interesting because I feel like this kind of, in a way, paved the way for when he did everything and it was just that symbol. Remember that? Like for a while there when like even on MTV, it wouldn't say Prince. It would just have that symbol and then say whatever. Like I think that was probably around the times of like Get Off and Diamonds and Pearls and shit.
Yeah, and you know, I swear I read or saw something about that, and I'm not sure if that also had something to do with his record contract too, where he would be able to put out certain albums or work where it wouldn't be under the contract or under his name. I don't. If anybody knows exactly like what,
we would love to know because we're not the experts.
Because I know Warner Brothers, because again, we've talked about how prolific he was, and sometimes he'd put out 2 albums a year, always coming out with material. There certainly wasn't a shortage, but it got to the point where Warner Brothers actually had to tell him to like slow down because they were actually worried he was going to oversaturate the market with his material. I mean, from a business perspective, I understand that. I really do.
But at the same point, from an artist, you're like, holy shit! Because if he took this whole album, which I actually really like the album, and if he was like, throw it away, scrap it, like, man, I can't imagine having like an album where I could be like, this sucks, just get rid of it. I'll do something else. That's a lot of material to have.
Yeah. But the majority of artists can't do that. They just can't because they spend so much time and effort, and it's such a big production, all the resources that go into it. Just from a economic perspective, it wouldn't be a smart move. Yeah.
So I think if we start talking about like the symbol and the reason behind that, you can't talk about that without talking about Prince's alter egos. And I did not know about this, but apparently the alter ego that fueled this album more so than anything is the one Camille. And I guess that just seems like maybe a dark kind of alter ego. You would think if it was behind this album, but then you have Symbol, which is AKA the artist formerly known as Prince, which I just referenced the symbol.
Right.
Jamie Starr, Alexander Nevermind, Christopher, which I think that ties into the album. I was just listening to this the other day because it was the one right before, I believe, Parade, which was a movie soundtrack as well, for the movie Under the Cherry Moon. But I think there's a reference to the first song is referenced like something. Let's see what it's called, but it's like the first song on that album is called Christopher Tracy's Parade. So I would assume that's kind of a reference to that alter ego. But then you got Joey Coco, Tora Tora, and Gemini.
There's a lot of people going on.
Yeah, I would think that like a therapist would have a fucking field day here. I mean, they would look at this and be like, well, welcome to the rest of your career as we unpack this shit, you know?
Well, I mean, even it's interesting because we were just talking about how he kind of pulled this one. Well, with his alter ego of Camille, there was supposed to be an album called Camille in '86, and he pulled that one as well. Like basically, he was weeks into it. It was weeks away from, I think, being produced. And yeah, dude, he just like threw the project away. Now he scrapped it, but a bunch of the songs actually were on Sign of the Times. But the whole thing with Camille was it was more from a kind of I guess, I don't know a better way to say it, a feminine style, feminine alter ego. So he's saying a lot of the songs are very like high pitch in that sense.
Well, and there's some of them
Sign
too.
Of the Times,
sorry, you finish.
Yeah, when you listen to Sign of the Times, which I actually did upon your recommendation, because I was like, I wanted to listen to what he was doing right before this album to see kind of how close they would be. Yeah. And after reading that, there's a few songs that really stuck out to me. I was like, oh wow, I could totally see that being on the Camille album. One of them is the song If I Was Your Girlfriend. Yeah. I mean, from a feminine alter ego standpoint, that title makes sense too.
Yeah, so. Sure. But another thing that he did in a couple instances where he would actually like raise the pitch of his voice.
And he does that too. And a lot of his songs, it's interesting because you can tell he'll be doing, I mean, he has female background singers on a lot of his songs as well, but he'll have little screams and chirps and things that he'll do in the background at selective points. And then he'll also sing more in like kind of like a deeper, I don't know, more baritone sound, or I don't know how you'd want to say it, but in a deeper voice. So his range is pretty incredible for what he's able to do. It's interesting. Not many people either can do it or B, have the guts to do it.
That's it. Have the guts to do it. And, I guess I'm, on one hand, I'm kind of bummed out. Like, man, I should have been into Prince's catalog, like from the get go, a lot deeper than I ever was. But I'm really glad that I heard that episode of Disgraceland, and as a result of it, have listened to a lot more of his music. Because one thing I was going to tell you, dude, is I have one of our favorite albums, which is The Blue Color of the Sky by OK Go.
Oh. Yeah.
I have read in interviews that they were very influenced by Prince for this album. And if you listen to how they sing the vocals in a lot of the songs, man, can you hear like an homage to Prince? I mean, like in a big way. I feel like I could just sit here and name the songs like that to me sound a lot like Prince, like White Knuckles. I
swear I Can't Breathe, right?
Yeah. I Want You So Bad I Can't Breathe. I mean, it's interesting when you listen to that album.
Yeah, now that you say that does remind me, because I have like the deluxe version of that OK Go album, and in the last 5 or 6 tracks, there's actually this interview with the band and their producer Dave Friedman, and I remember I forget the lead singer's name. I want to say Damon. No, it's not Damon. Anyways, doesn't matter. But anyways, he said Carl, Steve. No. But anyways, he says, I think that, he was listening to a lot of Prince, and that was a real influence during that time.
And you can hear it in the voice. Like once you've listened to more Prince, I think, and then you listen back to that album, like, man, you can hear it.
Damn, I'm going to put that album on after we're done recording.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
That'll be coming up soon, I think.
Oh, 2021. All right. So
but I think we can get into the tracks.
I think we can get into the tracks. Now, this was an album, so there's 8 tracks, because that's about, you can fit as many as you want, but lengthwise, there's 8 tracks, 4.
And there's some long ones.
4 to a side. I was surprised, dude. Yeah, there's some a couple 6 minutes and 7 minute songs. I was,
but I kind of like it. So you start off with Le Grind, and I mean, in some of them, like for Le Grind especially, the lyrics don't grab me in a certain way, because it's basically just talking about like grinding and dancing. But I mean, dude, you could put that on in a club, and everyone would fucking dance to it. I mean,
well, and And when I heard this song, that's exactly kind of what I envisioned. And what I envisioned is Prince is the DJ up there. He's the one, because if you listen to the words and what he's saying, he's telling everybody
what to do.
He's
like, I know it. I know it. I love it.
You know, when I give the cue, scream, party clap, clap your hands double time. I don't know all the boys say yeah.
If it's on the grind, but I love the one where it's like, piano man, put it where it feel good. That's awesome.
I believe it is. I believe it is on that song. So I thought it was kind of a cool way to start the album.
What a great song for a fucking concert too.
And totally,
it'd be awesome.
Definitely. I think it'd be one of those great songs where you could be playing it. You know how during a show, a lot of times especially if there's a lot of members on stage and you're like introducing people.
Oh, kind
of like that song where you give somebody a shout out and they get their little part or something.
Yep.
So, overall, just speaking of the album, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more at the end. I feel like this album does go a lot of places. I can maybe understand why he pulled it. For a couple of reasons, but
I know, but then when I listen to it, I'm like, God, it is really fucking good though. Like, damn,
it's one of those things that, like I'm curious, like what would people have really thought? Like,
I agree. That really does become the question. Like, how would it really have been received? So go on to Cindy C, right?
Cindy. Ooh,
I absolutely love this song too, and I find myself singing, "Oh, Cindy C, won't you play with me?"
Yeah. So and Cindy C for everyone should be noted that is supposed to be for Cindy Crawford.
Yeah, but it's funny because in the lyrics he talks about it like in France, but I guess if you're pretty sure in the lyrics he says something about like. In Paris, France. I'll look real quick. But either way, I mean, if you are a truly like international supermodel as she was at that time, you may well. Oh, yeah. Over in Paris, France. Oh, Cindy C. If I get a camera, tell me you will dance. Will you play with me?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, dude, this song is it's more fun and kind of upbeat. Not that the first one isn't, but this one's definitely more fun and upbeat. The one thing that really stood out to me actually though is the I really liked the background vocals on this song, and they're very upfront and prominent in the mix when you're listening to it.
Yeah,
almost just as prominent as his vocals are just singing the lyrics to the song. They're almost sort of competing with each other, but they're so good and thick. That I really liked it.
Well, to bring it back to Spinal Tap, as you said, where they referenced one of their albums that got bad reviews, and they said it wasn't mixed right. Like, I don't think people would say that about this album because it was definitely fucking mixed right and it was awesome.
Well, that's one thing. And there's another song, maybe we'll talk about it a little more, but the production is second to none. I mean, it's absolutely, it's so well done. It's really well done.
It's all really good.
Yeah. Then we go to track number 3, which is Dead On It.
Dead On It. Which I love because it's kind of a stab at like rap.
That's exactly what it is.
And I when I had heard, and I'm assuming this would go back to that, maybe the critic that he references later on in Bob George, but I think it's George Nelson, or is it Nelson George? But either way, I don't know if it was Nelson George. I don't know if it was that particular critic or another one, but I think that, like you said, people felt like he had kind of lost a little something that he had, and that, funk wasn't the thing anymore. It was rap. And I feel like this song was put out in a way to be like, fuck that. And I love the fact that he talks about rappers as being tone deaf and they can't sing, because that's fucking really funny.
That's what he says. He says, see, the rappers' problem stems from being tone deaf. Pack the house and they try to sing there, but no one's left.
It is one of my favorite songs. I just for some reason I love how he just breaks that phrase up and he says, "I'm dead. Own it." and they get that. It is really funky. Like it's.
It is a nice. I think, and it's weird. There's a part of me. I mean, you could say one that he's taking maybe a shot at rap in that genre during that time, but it's also taking a shot at the people who are probably pushing him to go in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Because he starts off and he kind of does like rap a little bit. He does almost like his version of it, which is kind of this again, like sort of like a satire. You're just kind of being sarcastic a little bit.
Well, and he talks about like a lot of rap songs where he's like, he's driving down the car in his freeway and I hear a silly rapper talking about some silly shit. And, and it's funny.
Dude, I will say there's one, I don't know if your ears caught this. You've listened to it a bunch of times. Towards the end, there's a couple of parts where there's this like really, really nasty kind of gritty guitar sound in the background. And it reminds me of Pinion from Nine Inch Nails. Like that. Like it has that.
Yeah. Like the best thing in the song that happens like only once. And then it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I got to listen to it again.
It's a short song.
So speaking of short songs, When Two Are in Love.
Two are in love. Two for you because one won't do.
Now it's it's like your kind of ballad, I guess, to the album. And one thing that I thought was really interesting about this is I believe the way I read it was that this was one of the only songs, or I think the only song on this album, but maybe one of the only ones in his career where he actually took this version that he recorded for the Black Album and put it on the album Love Sexy.
Yeah, he did. And it's interesting because I haven't been able to actually. So I listened to this. I was like, oh, I want to listen to the When Two Are in Love. I want to listen to it on Love. I wanted to compare the versions.
Yeah,
see
sure.
if it was like the same one. So I go to Apple Music, and that album, I couldn't find it on Apple Music. I couldn't find Love Sexy on Apple Music. Then I went to Spotify, and I looked up Love Sexy there. It showed up, but to me, it only showed up as one track. And it was like 45 minutes. So it was like the whole album was one track.
Whoa, that's weird.
So I'm not sure.
I don't know if that's a contractual thing or some record company shit.
Or it got pulled. But I'd love to know if people out there know if it's the same version.
I think that I want to say when I read it, they said that this was the only time that he, or maybe the only, or one of the only times that he actually did that, where it was like he just took that same song and like transplanted it.
Put it over. Yeah.
So,
but dude, it's a good song. Dude, the way he sings it beautifully. Like he really does.
And I guess it became a part of a lot of his live shows too, where he'd do the piano, play the piano part.
I think there's some stand-up bass in it too, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably. So let's flip the record.
Oh, and this is where things get a little weird.
Dude,
would you say?
I agree. I think side 2 is probably the point where he was like, oh, fuck, man, maybe this is just a little too much. Because,
a little too far-fetched.
I actually love the first song, Bob George. Like, I like it a lot because when I heard it, I was almost like, dude, what is this? But I like it. He just, I believe that's his voice, like, altered.
It is.
And he's just talking about you seeing that rich motherfucker again. And I love where he has the who bought you that diamond ring? Yeah, right. You ain't got no job. And dude, I was telling you my favorite one is where he references TV dinners.
Yeah.
I think that is to me the best. What does he say? For someone who can't stand them TV dinners, you should read enough of them motherfuckers. Like that's so damn funny to me. It's just so funny.
I have to admit, when I first heard this song, I was a little weary of it actually being him and being an actual song off.
Yeah, you thought it was like a hoax?
Was supposed to be. I thought maybe, because you see the video, like the only way I could get it was on YouTube. And I was like, oh, maybe, somebody just kind of like, played a joke and they put this song in the middle. Maybe it was their track making fun of it or something. But from everything I've researched, like this is the track. And
yeah, sure.
It's
I would think this is probably the one. This is probably the one where he was like, I can't do this.
It's just not. I feel like it's kind of beneath him.
I agree. I agree.
Talk about people like this, and in this manner, and again, not knowing a lot, a lot of his work throughout the years. I mean, he swears a lot in this song, and it just doesn't
more
sound
so
like,
than I've ever heard. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just seemed a little, I don't know. I can't say that, I love it for him or for that manner. So yeah, lots of swearing, lots of talking shit, very, uncharacteristic.
Yeah,
It kind of reminded me of
something.
like early 90s rap where they have like skits and stuff
sure.
in their albums and everything. It sounded like that a little bit.
But I think the interesting thing was the track name was a combination of Bob Cavallo, former manager, and Nelson George, who was like a critic who had become pretty critical
I imagine
of him.
Yeah.
So you move on to super funky
super
califragilistic sexy.
Calif-
Which I thought this maybe would have been one of the ones that he was unsure of as well, because it's kind of like dirty when you listen to it. But at the same time, as I listen to other stuff, he does get just as dirty in some of the other things. So I guess this probably wasn't the one. As I listened to some of his other music, I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't the reason. But it gets pretty explicit. Like talking about tying somebody up in a chair and playing with yourself. Like, it's funny.
And I mean, dude, people are into what they're into, and who am I to judge?
Yeah, sure.
But
some people want a mask with a zipper for a mouth. I don't know. I thought that was a hot dog eating mask, but I'm not sure.
Bring out the GIMP.
Yeah, dude. Actually, look up hot dog eating mask on Amazon. It's funny.
Look up the. Never mind. All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, but dude, this song, this is one that really stood out to me because of it had so many layers to it and so many vocal layers. Yeah. And it's one of those things I felt like when I was listening to a lot of his music, I get into it and I forget how much is kind of going on and how full it is. I mean, dude, there's so many background vocals and little, like I was saying earlier, he has these like little chirps and things he'll throw in
and
there.
Just rhythmic things on the guitar and the keyboards, which is one of the reasons why I thought like normally you'd be critical of someone who used a drum machine that much, but it's like the drum machine just sets that basic tone, and it's all the in between things that he does that just gives it that like the really hot rhythm. I feel like my opinion.
And there was one song earlier in the album, I forget what it was, but dude, I swear the drum beat is just like a drum, just like hitting. Yeah. And it's just very straightforward and simple, but there's so much stuff going on around it that doesn't matter, So.
Yeah, I know. So the next song,
we'll abbreviate the title.
United
two guys,
for West Compton. Two guys.
Yeah. Two guys.
Yeah.
2 word.
I guess this was just like some iteration of a jam that they would do live. Now, granted, vastly different from what they would actually do live, but like some sort of a jazz kind of funk jam. And you can hear that because there isn't much for lyrics. I do like when those two very plain voices yell out, "Two people united for West Compton," and then it starts. But I mean, it's just kind of, it's just hot.
Yeah. Well, I would like to know I'm sure he played something on the album or on this track because I know other people played on this album. I'd just be curious as to know like what parts he played, because dude, it is a very just crazy funky just jazz odyssey, right? I mean,
as you look at the personnel listing and what other people played, I mean, it's mainly people who did like some percussion, vocals, horns. Like, I think like the organ and a lot of the stuff you're hearing, I think is actually him. I mean, he just, and I'm sure like live, obviously you have other people doing it, but they ripped it up. Yeah.
I mean, it just makes this second side of the album just that much crazier, doesn't it?
It does. It really, I agree with you. Well, and then if that wasn't crazy enough, the final track is called Rock Hard in a Funky Place.
Yeah.
And I remember the one lyric from listening to the Disgraceland podcast, but he was like, I don't want to let an erection go to waste. Like,
dude,
that's
that's the line that I wrote down too. I just hate to see an erection go to waste. I mean, I can't argue with that,
so
but
funny.
it's dude.
I can't imagine putting that on an album, but like, you know, that's.
Hey mom, check out my new song.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah. But dude, so this song was actually, it had been around for a little bit too, because he considered it for his Crystal Ball album, or the Crystal Ball album, and then also for Camille as well. So I think just how we were talking about, you know, When Two Are in Love, it sounds like he had this song. I don't know if it was specifically recorded for that album and he just chose not to put it on it, or it was kind of around for a bit and he finally got to producing it. So, but dude, the end of the song kind of fades out and then it comes back up and he says, you know, what kind of a fuck ending was that?
Yeah. I like that. It's funny. It's like, you're not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing. It would be interesting for Prince fans to comment or let us know how they feel, not just about the whole album, but specifically this second side. And if you would have heard this,
I would love to know that too.
If you would have heard this in 1987, like coming off the heels of his previous albums, like what would you have thought? Or dude, even what did you think in 94 when this actually really did come out, you know? Like,
well, sure. But for 3 months. And if you got a copy of it, because obviously it didn't come out in the sense that you can even still like listen to a release digitally. And I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So,
but dude, with that, I think we gotta get to scratching, and I don't know what the implement would be this time since he pulled it off the shelves, and
no, we can just do a box cutter, the box cutter that was never used. How about that,
dude? To open the box cutter, it is. You open up the cockpit door. I got a box cutter. Let's do this.
All right, I think it's your turn, but it could be my turn.
All right. Well,
you go.
I'll go ahead and go. And dude, for me, it's going to be When Two Are in Love. Not that it isn't a really good song, but the album is just so hot and funky. Like, to me, it's almost like if I'm listening to it, that's like the downer moment where I'm like, oh man, like, can we just go to Bob George?
I got you. Oh, wow. My friend. Well, I'm going to make you a very unhappy man because I am going to scratch Mr. Bob George.
Oh, I thought we were going to OT for the third week in a row, but no. Okay. I'm pretty sure I understand why, because it is not, it is weird, but I love it.
Here's the thing with it. I think, maybe you have the times in front of you. I want to say this song goes on for maybe like 5 or 6 minutes, and
5.5.
It's a while. And now I don't mind the song. I don't mind what he did with it, the message he was trying to send. I think, you know, I have zero problem with that, but it does go on for some time, and
it does get a little weird near the end with the gunshots and everything too.
You know,
I get that.
So I think that's where I would do it. Now that doesn't leave us with, you know, much of an album left, but I guess back in record days, it's not.
So all right,
a huge thing.
So we haven't been doing this. We should be doing this. What's your favorite song on the album?
Ooh, favorite song. Gosh, let me see. What's yours, man?
I'm kind of tied between Dead on It and Bob George.
Yeah, I would.
I really like Dead on It. I really like that one.
I would probably actually go with that one too. I think Dead on It would.
Or Cindy C, because I'm singing that all the time. Won't you play with me?
Cindy C. I mean, it's hard to argue with Cindy C. I mean, she.
Yeah, for sure.
Still looks amazing. I don't even know how old she is, but geez.
Yeah,
I'd probably go with Dead on It.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, we're dead on the end of the episode, dude.
Yes,
we got past our technical difficulties. Somehow we made it work. It's a Christmas miracle before Christmas.
Exactly. Well, We hope that you guys enjoyed this. We know it's not kind of a typical album that we would do because, usually we do something that I would say, more people are familiar with. Not that
but
people
the story is just too good.
With Prince.
I was absolutely compelled with hearing the story. I was like, I have to know about this. This is awesome. How did I not know about this?
Yeah. And if I remember, I'll put a link down below to the YouTube video.
Yeah, we should.
Or I guess album that we checked out. Otherwise, just search Prince the Black Album. Or actually, what was the other name for it too? It was also the
Funk Bible.
The Funk Bible.
The Funk Bible,
so,
dude. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely give it a listen. Especially if you're a Prince fan or not a Prince fan, even you might find it at the very least interesting. I would say
it's a good album. Like I at no point in listening to it from the first time up until like the last time I did, which was today again, I enjoy it every time. It's funky. It's like, dude brought the funk his whole career, man. Like really. And I guess like after listening to this and a lot of his other stuff, like I could never understand earlier in my life why he was like so influential and viewed as, I just didn't get it. I mean, part of it was I was younger, but I just like, after hearing his music, you're finally like, okay, I get it. Like I understand why now.
You're invited.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
So
rightly so. No, I'm right there with you, my friend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Please give us a like and a subscribe. It certainly helps us out. Share the word about the Dude and Grimm Show and the Black Album. So
please
until next time.
Love y'all.
See ya. Peace.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grimm. Additional music provided by More. That's ... MORE and the Tims TIMNZ. Copyright 2020. The Dude and Grimm Show.